My name's Deanna, and I've been carrying this story in my heart for more years than I can count. Sometimes I tell myself I ought to let it rest, but then I think about all the young girls out there who feel like life already gave up on them, and I reckon maybe my story can help somebody hold on a little longer. I grew up in a little town where folks talked more than they listened. We didn't have much, just an old trailer that creaked every time the wind blew, and a mama who worked herself bone tired keeping us fed. I used to dream about leaving, about seeing places where people didn't look at you and see your last name first. But dreams don't always wait till you grown, and life sure don't ask permission before it changes everything. I was still just a kid when the world decided I had to be grown. One day I was worrying about school clothes, and the next I was worrying about how to keep a tiny baby warm. I remember sitting on my mama's bed, holding that little bundle so small she could fit in one arm. Evelyn, that's what I named her. I looked at her face and thought, Lord, what do I do now? My mama cried, but she never turned her back on me. She said, We'll make it, Deanna. We always do. And we did somehow. I started cleaning houses before the sun come up, leaving Evelyn with Mama till I got back. I'd pick her up and smell her hair and tell myself all the hurt was worth it if she could just have something better. People talked, of course. They always do. I'd walk down Main Street and feel their eyes on me like little pinpricks. Some smiled, that tight smile that ain't really kind. Others just whispered, but I kept my head down and pushed that old stroller like it was a chariot because that baby was my reason for breathing. Nights were the worst. The world got quiet and I could hear every doubt in my head. I'd hum to Evelyn soft songs Mama used to hum to me, and I'd think about the life I wanted for her, a roof that didn't leak, a door that locked, a fridge that stayed full. The years rolled by like that, one long day after another. My hands got rough from scrubbing floors, but my heart got strong. Evelyn learned to walk, then talk, and Lord, that girl was curious. Always asking questions, always looking at me with them big eyes that saw more than a child should see. She knew I was tired, even when I smiled. And I think that's what lit a little fire in her. She'd tell me, Mama, I'm going to buy you a big house one day. I'd laugh and say, Baby, just finish school first. But deep down, I believed her. Sometimes folks from church would bring hand-me-downs or casserole, and I was grateful but also ashamed. I didn't want pity. I wanted a chance. But chances are rare when your name's whispered with judgment. Still, every morning I woke up and told myself, you ain't quitting. I learned to stretch a dollar till it screamed, learned to fix leaks with tape, learned that love can feed a child longer than any meal when that's all you got. When Evelyn started school, I cried behind the steering wheel of the old car we borrowed from a neighbor. She turned around at the door, waved, and smiled that fearless smile. That's when I knew maybe I'd done one thing right. She had courage I never had. And when she went off to that first day of school, I sat there in the car a long time after she disappeared inside. The wind was blowing dust across the parking lot, and I remember thinking, you did it, girl. She's here. She's learning. She's going to be somebody. That little thought kept me alive through a lot of hard winters. I'd clean houses all day, sometimes two, sometimes three, come home and help her with homework, even though half the time I didn't understand it myself. I'd sound out the words with her, both of us giggling over the big ones, and I'd pretend like I wasn't scared of the future. There were nights when I'd lie awake listening to the pipes knocking, wondering if we'd make rent, wondering if I was ruining her life by keeping her close instead of letting her stay with Mama full time. But every morning, she'd climb in my lap, wrap her little arms around my neck, and say, Good morning, Mama, like the world was brand new. Kids got a way of forgiving the world quicker than grown-ups do. Time kept rolling. Evelyn got taller, started bringing home good grades, and I started dreaming again. Just little dreams. A steady job at the grocery store, maybe a place with a small yard. I saved every spare dollar in a coffee can under the sink. Some days that can had nothing but coins in it, but I'd shake it and tell her, "Listen to that sound, baby. That's our future rattling." She'd laugh and say, "I like that sound, Mama." But it wasn't all easy. There were people who never stopped reminding me what I'd been, what they thought I'd done wrong, jobs I didn't get, doors that closed fast. Some nights I came home crying, and Evelyn would wipe my face with those tiny hands and say, "Don't cry, Mama. We got each other." She didn't know how heavy them words were, how much they saved me. When she hit her teens, she started helping with bills, babysitting, working weekends at the diner. She had my work ethic, but none of my shame, and I thank God for that. She used to tell me, "I'm going to finish school, then college. I'm going to show everybody what we can be." And she meant it. I'd watch her study by lamplight and I'd whisper, "You already showing them, baby. Every day you wake up, you showing them." The world didn't suddenly turn kind, but somehow it got lighter. We were climbing inch by inch. There were birthdays with store-bought cakes, Christmases where the tree leaned to one side but shone bright anyway, and laughter that filled our little place till you couldn't hear the wind outside. By the time Evelyn turned 16, she was taller than me and talking about scholarship applications like she'd been born for it. I used to sit at the kitchen table watching her fill out forms, her pencil moving fast, her face serious. I'd think, how did this little girl who used to chase fireflies turn into this young woman with plans bigger than the sky? Sometimes I wanted to stop her, just hold on a little longer, but I knew better. The whole point of raising her was so she could fly where I couldn't. She started working more hours after school, and half the town knew her by name. People who used to whisper about me started smiling when they saw her. They'd say, "Deanna, that girl of yours, she's going places." I'd smile and nod, keeping quiet about all the nights we ate beans and rice so she could have bus money to those extra classes. Every "you must be proud" felt like a medal I hadn't earned, but I carried it anyway. Then came the day she walked across that high school stage. I was sitting way in the back, couldn't afford the good seats, but when they called her name and she took that diploma, she looked straight toward me like I was the only soul in that whole gym. I cried, Lord, I cried right there in front of everybody. My baby had made it further than I ever dreamed. She got a small scholarship to a college 2 hours away. Packing her things near broke me, but I smiled the whole time. I told her, "Don't you worry about me, baby. You go build the life God meant for you." When she hugged me goodbye, she whispered, "I'll make you proud, Mama." I said, "You already did." After she drove off, the house was so quiet it hurt my ears. For the first time in years, I didn't have anyone to tuck in, and I realized all that fighting to survive had become who I was. I kept working, kept saving every dime. Sometimes I'd send her $20 with a note saying, "Buy yourself something sweet." She'd always call, laughing, saying, "Mama, you need that more than me." But I wanted her to know that even if I didn't have much, I'd give her everything I had. Years passed, letters turned into phone calls into quick visits at Christmas. She was busy studying, interning, talking about law school. Me, I was still cleaning, still paying bills, one envelope at a time. But every time she walked through that door, the whole house lit up again. She'd tell me about professors who liked her work, about city lights that stayed on all night. I'd listen, proud and scared at the same time, proud of her, scared that I'd be left behind. Then came the letter. She'd been accepted to a big university out of state, full scholarship. I sat at the kitchen table holding that paper, staring at her name. Evelyn Marie, my baby girl. I thought about all the nights I prayed for something better, and there it was in my hands. When she came home that summer before leaving, she took me out to dinner for the first time in my life. Said she'd saved her tips and wanted to treat me. We sat in a little diner with red booths and old pictures on the wall. She ordered pancakes even though it was dinner time, said breakfast tasted better at night. We laughed till tears ran down our faces. She looked at me and said, Mama, someday I'm going to buy you a house where the roof don't leak and the kitchen smells like coffee all the time. I told her, I don't need no big house, baby. I just need to know you're happy. But I won't lie, I went home that night and let myself dream of that house anyway. The day she left for the university, I watched her bus pull away and waved till I couldn't see it no more. The street got quiet again, same as the day she started school, only this time the quiet felt different. It felt like pride instead of loss. I went back inside, sat in her old room, looked at the posters still hanging crooked on the wall, and I whispered, We made it, baby. We really made it. When Evelyn left for that big university, I thought I'd be fine. I told folks I was proud, and I was, but I didn't expect the silence that moved in after her. It was like living inside a clock where you can hear every tick. I still got up early, still made coffee for two, still looked out the window waiting to see her coming down the road, even though I knew she wasn't. The only sound was the hum of the fridge and the old dog snoring in the corner. At first, she called every night. She'd tell me about classes that started before sunrise, about libraries bigger than our whole town. I'd listen, trying to picture it, the crowds, the tall buildings. She sounded happy, but sometimes I could hear the tired in her voice. I told her to eat, to rest, to remember where she came from. She'd laugh and say, Mama, you still worry too much. Maybe I did. That's what mamas do. Back home, I took on extra houses to clean. Needed the distraction. Some of them were near the nice part of town, big places with wide porches and shiny floors. I'd mop and dust and think, one day Evelyn's going to live in a place like this. Then I'd smile because that thought kept me going. The years started slipping by faster. I missed birthdays, holidays, all those little things. Sometimes she'd send pictures, her with friends, her holding books thicker than my arm. I kept everyone in a shoebox under the bed. When the nights got long, I'd take that box out, spread those pictures on the quilt, and talk to her like she could hear me. I'd tell her how proud I was, how her old mama was still fighting through another week. Then came the call that near knocked me over. She said, Mama, I got offered an internship in the city, a good one. They even pay. I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, saying, That's my girl. You go take that chance. I didn't tell her I was crying because they were happy tears. She went and the calls got shorter, but when she did call, her voice sounded stronger. There was this confidence in it I'd never heard before. I could tell she was learning to stand tall in rooms that used to scare her. I told her, Keep your heart good, baby. Don't let them city folks change your soul. She said, Don't worry, Mama, I'm still me. I kept working. My knees started hurting, my back too, but I didn't slow down. Every dollar I saved went into that same coffee can, though now it was mostly for her to send a little help, to buy a dress she wanted, or to fix that old car she drove. I figured one day she'd stop me from working altogether. She always promised she would. Then one summer she came home different. Not bad different, just grown. Walked in wearing a suit like she belonged on one of them TV shows. She hugged me, said, Mama, I got hired after graduation, a real job. I laughed and cried all at once. We sat on the porch till dark, talking about everything and nothing. I looked at her and saw all my years of scrubbing floors, all the gossip I'd swallowed, all the nights I'd gone hungry. They were sitting right there, smiling back at me. She said, I couldn't have done it without you. I told her, you did it because you were brave enough to try. She shook her head, said, no, Mama, I was brave because you taught me how. That night I slept like I hadn't in years. The house still leaked when it rained, and the fridge still hummed too loud, but it felt different. It felt full again. After that summer, the seasons rolled by quicker than I expected. Evelyn moved to the city for good, said it was time to start her new job. I hugged her so tight, she laughed and said, Mama, you're going to wrinkle my jacket. I told her, Girl, I earned the right to wrinkle a jacket or two. She promised to call every week, and for the first few months she did. She'd talk about deadlines and long hours, about the way the city lights looked from her apartment window. I'd listen and try to picture it all, a world so far from our little town that it felt like another planet. At home, I kept working. The houses got bigger, my back got stiffer, but the bills still came just the same. Some days I'd catch sight of myself in a window and think, you sure look older than you feel. But then I'd remember every step of how we got here, and the tire didn't feel so heavy. I still went to church on Sundays, still smiled at folks, even when they didn't know what to say to me. Then one Sunday after service, Mrs. Harper, the same woman who used to whisper when I walked past with a baby on my hip, came up to me and said, Deanna, isn't your daughter that young lawyer in the city? I saw her on the news. I nodded, felt my heart jump a little. Yes, ma'am, that's my Evelyn. She smiled, said, Well, you must have done something right. I just said, I tried. That was the first time in years that somebody said my name with kindness behind it. Evelyn kept climbing. She called one night and told me she'd been promoted. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the old radio humming low. She said, Mama, I want you to quit that cleaning job. I'll help with the bills now. I laughed and told her, Baby, I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I quit working, but after I hung up, I looked at my hands, all lined and rough, and I thought maybe it was time to rest a little. She started sending money every month, said it was just thank you money. I put most of it away, didn't tell her, figured one day I'd surprise her back. That's how mamas think. A few months later, she called again, excited, said she was coming home for a visit, wanted to bring someone special to meet me. I nearly dropped the phone. The week before she arrived, I scrubbed every inch of the house till it shined. When she walked through that door, all city polished and confident, I barely recognized her voice, still sweet but stronger. And when she introduced that young man standing beside her, polite and nervous, I saw the way he looked at her like she was the sun itself. I thought, she found somebody who sees her worth right off the bat. We sat up late, talking, laughing till my cheeks hurt. She told me stories about the cases she worked on, about helping people who couldn't afford lawyers. I just listened, letting the pride wash over me. She didn't brag, she just cared. That was the same heart she had as a little girl, only now the whole world could see it. When she left again, the house went quiet, but this time the quiet didn't ache. It felt peaceful, like a chapter turning. I went out on the porch, watched the dust float through the sunlight, and whispered, You did it, baby. We both did. After that visit, I went back to my regular days, but they didn't feel the same. It was like the air had shifted a little. Folks who used to walk by without speaking started nodding, asking about Evelyn. I'd hear her name floating through the grocery store line, people saying, That girl's doing big things up there in the city. I'd smile, polite, say, Yes, ma'am, she's working hard, and leave it at that. I didn't need to say more. Just hearing her name said with pride instead of pity was enough to make me tear up when I got home. I still kept that old job for a while. Habit, I guess. When you spend years scrubbing other folks' floors, it's hard to stop just because the world suddenly thinks you deserve better. But every now and then, while I was dusting shelves or polishing a sink, I'd catch myself smiling. I'd think about Evelyn walking through them tall glass doors to her office, carrying that same fire she always had, and I'd whisper, "Keep going, baby." She came home again the next Thanksgiving, driving instead of taking the bus this time. When she stepped out of that car, shiny and new, I had to blink twice. "Mama," she said, laughing, "don't you cry yet." But I was already crying. She handed me the keys and said, "You're riding with me now. No more waiting on rides." I didn't know what to say. We drove to town with the windows down, laughing like fools, and for once I didn't care who saw. That night, sitting on the porch, I told her how proud her grandma would have been. She laid her head on my shoulder and said, "You always say that, Mama." I said, "Well, it's true. The stars were bright that night and the air was soft." And I remember thinking that maybe the hard part of life was finally starting to ease up. A few months later, the local paper printed an article about her. "Homegrown girl becomes city lawyer." They even used a picture of her standing in front of a courthouse, all confident and beautiful. I cut that article out, framed it, and hung it right over the kitchen table. Every time I passed it, I'd smile and touch the frame. And wouldn't you know it, folks who once crossed the street to avoid me started stopping by. Some came with pies, some with nervous smiles, saying, "Deanna, you must be so proud." I'd pour them coffee and listen while they talked about their kids and grandkids, and I'd nod, acting like I didn't remember the years they wouldn't look me in the eye. I wasn't mad. Maybe once I would have been, but by then I'd learned that time's the best teacher there is. Evelyn started sending more money home, said it was for me to fix up the place. I hired a man from church to patch the roof and paint the porch. When it was done, I sat out there every evening, watching the sun drop behind the trees, listening to the world settle. The peace that came over me felt like something I'd been chasing my whole life. Then one afternoon, the phone rang, and it was Evelyn again. Her voice was excited, breathless. "Mama," she said, "there's something I want to do, but I can't tell you yet, not till it's ready." I laughed, told her she was teasing me. She said, "Just trust me." I said, "I always have." I didn't know it then, but that was the start of the biggest change of all, the one that turned every whisper, every sideways glance, every bit of pain into something that shined. After that call, I found myself waking up a little earlier each morning, listening to the phone like it might ring on its own. You ever get that feeling when you know something's coming, but you don't know when? It's like standing on the porch before a storm. You can feel the air change, but you can't see the rain yet. That's how it was for me. I kept busy, same as always. I'd sweep the porch, hang laundry out back, walk down to the little store just to talk to whoever was behind the counter. Folks had started treating me different these days. They'd smile bigger, ask about Evelyn with honest curiosity, not gossip. Sometimes they'd tell me how their kids were trying to go to college now, saying they wanted to be like that girl from our town. That used to make me tear up a bit. Funny how the same people who once said we'd never make it now used her name like a badge of hope. Evenings were my quiet time. I'd sit out there with my cup of tea, watch the sun dip low, and let my mind wander. I'd think back on all the things I'd gone through, the hunger, the stares, the cold winters when the heater barely worked. And somehow, sitting there, I didn't feel bitter anymore. I felt proud, like all those cracks in my life had finally let some light through. Some nights, though, I still missed her something awful. I'd look at the old armchair she used to curl up in when she was little, reading her school books out loud so I could hear her learn. I'd whisper to the empty room, "Baby, I hope you're eating good. I hope you're sleeping enough." I'd catch myself smiling, because that's what mamas do. We worry even when there's nothing to worry about. Every so often, I'd walk down to the mailbox hoping to see her handwriting on an envelope. Sometimes it'd be a letter, sometimes a card, sometimes just a folded piece of paper with a few words. Hang in there, Mama, I'm working on something. Those few words could carry me for weeks. Then came this one afternoon, bright and breezy. I was sitting by the window, mending a tear in my curtain, when I saw Mrs. Harper again walking her little dog. She stopped at my gate and said, Deanna, I heard your girls on the radio now. They were talking about some big case she's helping with. I laughed and said, Well, that's my Evelyn, always fighting for somebody. And the look on that woman's face, almost proud of me, made me realize something. Life don't always pay you back the same way it hurts you. Sometimes it gives you peace instead of revenge. But I also knew deep down that Evelyn's kind of justice wasn't done yet. Days turned into weeks, and still I waited. The garden started blooming again. I'd pick tomatoes, bring 'em to the neighbors, and they'd say, You're glowing lately, Deanna. I'd just smile and say, It's the sunshine. But really, it was something else. It was hope. Quiet, steady hope that my girl was out there building something beautiful. And every night before I went to bed, I'd kneel down and say the same prayer I'd been saying since the day she was born. Lord, keep my child safe and let her light shine even in dark places. I didn't know it then, but that prayer was about to come true in a way I never could have dreamed. One morning the phone rang while I was in the yard hanging laundry. I near about dropped the sheet I was holding. It was Evelyn. She said, Mama, I finally finished what I was telling you about. But you got to promise me you won't fuss. I'm coming home next weekend. Then she laughed that soft laugh of hers and hung up before I could ask a single question. All week long, I moved like somebody waiting on Christmas. I scrubbed the kitchen, baked cornbread, even pulled out the old photo albums she liked to look through. When Saturday came, I sat by the window, heart thumping. Around noon, a line of cars started turning up. Our dusty road, 3 of them, shiny ones. Evelyn stepped out of the first. She had on a simple blue dress and that same big smile that could light a room. Mama, she said, come outside. I want to show you something. I followed her to the end of the lane, trying to figure out what she was up to. Then I saw it. Right there on the empty lot across from the church, fresh paint, new wood, a big banner hanging that said the Deanna Center. My knees near gave out. Evelyn caught my arm, laughing through her tears. It's a community center, Mama, for girls who need a place to study, to dream. I told them I named it after the woman who taught me never to quit. I couldn't speak. All I could do was hold her hand and stare. People from town started gathering. Some of them were the same folks who once looked down their noses at me. Now they were clapping, patting my back, saying how proud they were. I didn't have any words for it, just tears, warm and real, running down my face. When we went inside, there were bookshelves, computers, even a little kitchen, so no kid had to learn on an empty stomach. On one wall hung a big framed photo of me and her from years ago, her in her school dress, me in my work apron. Underneath it was a plaque that said, For every mother who believed when no one else did. That night, after everyone left and the lights were off, I sat on the porch with her. The moon was high, the crickets loud, and my heart felt so full it ached. I told her, baby, you didn't just prove them wrong. You showed them what grace looks like. She smiled and said, Mama, I just wanted the world to know your name the way I've always said it with respect. I laughed through my tears. Well, you sure did that. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long while, the silence between us was sweet. The revenge wasn't loud, it was gentle. Every person who once whispered about us would have to pass that building with my name on it and remember. And as the night got cooler and the stars came out, I realized something life had finally given me back. Everything it took, only in a softer way. Not out of spite, but out of love. After that day, I don't think I ever walked through town the same way again. I'd go to the store and people would stop me just to shake my hand. Some of them said they were sorry for the things they'd said back then. I didn't need their sorry, but I took it kindly because I knew it wasn't about me anymore. It was about forgiveness. I'd pass that center every morning on my way to church. The paint still smelled new, and the signs still shined when the sun hit it just right. Sometimes I'd see girls sitting on the steps with their books, laughing the way Evelyn used to. I'd think maybe that's what all the hurt was for, so somebody else wouldn't have to feel it. Evelyn came home most weekends now. She said she liked the peace here. Sometimes she'd bring her laptop and sit on the porch working. Other times we'd just sit quiet, listening to the cicadas hum. One evening, she said, "Mama, do you ever think about how different things could have been?" I told her sometimes, but then I think maybe it had to be hard. Maybe we needed every bit of it to get here. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and said, "I'm glad you never gave up on me." I looked at her, my grown girl, and said, "Baby, you were my reason." That's what a mother's heart does. It keeps going, even when the world stops. Now, when folks come by to interview her or take pictures for the paper, they always want me in the frame too. I don't say much, just smile and hold her hand. I let her do the talking because her voice carries both our stories now. And at night, when the house gets quiet, I still sit by that same window, only now, instead of waiting for the phone to ring, I just whisper thank you for the pain, the lessons, the love that refused to die, for the chance to see my child become everything they said she couldn't be. So if you're listening to me right now and you're sitting somewhere wondering if it's ever going to get better, hear me. It will. It might take years. It might take every tear you've got, but it will. Don't let the world tell you you're too young, too poor, too broken. Every scar you carry is proof you survived something. Keep your head up. Keep working. Keep believing in the good you can't see yet, because one day you're going to wake up and realize the storm didn't destroy you, it watered you. And you'll bloom right where they said nothing ever would. Now go make them remember your name, not out of anger, but out of grace. That's the real revenge. That's resilience. So if my story touched your heart today, don't just scroll past it. Take a minute and share it with somebody who might need to hear that it ain't over for them yet. Maybe a mama raising her child alone. Maybe somebody who's been laughed at. Maybe someone who's fighting quiet battles like I did. Let them know they ain't alone. And if you're still here listening, thank you. Go on and tap that like button. Leave me a comment. Tell me what part of this story spoke to you the most, because I read every single one. And make sure you subscribe, because I've got more stories to tell. Stories about life, love, pain, and the kind of strength you don't learn till you've been through something. Now go live your story. Don't hide it. One day, it might be the light somebody else needs.